Welcome back to the MOOC course on corporate social responsibility. My name is Aradhana Malik and I'm helping you with this course. And we started discussing the evolution of the concept of CSR. Now, in these next couple of lectures, I have something very, very interesting for you, and that is how CSR came to be what it is today, and there's a global timeline that I will describe to you. And the idea for this came through a paper that I was reading on the history of CSR, and I will give you a link to the paper. Now the paper is here. So this is the paper that I have used, a historic perspective of the CSR movement, and it's a white paper that has been compiled by Dr. P. Katsoulakos. It's a Greek name, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. And it's a very beautiful, well integrated paper, and I got the idea and I looked at the links, for various things that were mentioned in this paper. So for the most part, the information has been taken from this paper, but additional information has been provided to you as and where possible. Okay, so we'll go to the CSR Global Timeline. Now, where did this whole idea of CSR begin globally and begin to be documented globally? It must have begun earlier in India. There were various things that happened. People were taking care of their employees, but where did this documentation begin? And that's very, very interesting, because it will give you a worldwide perspective of what has been happening in the rest of the world, and how it has come to take the shape that it has today. Now, the first account of any responsibility to society comes from the fair trade practices adopted between 1946 and 1958. An organization that was called Self-Help Crafts began buying needlework from poor communities in Puerto Rico, and this was in the United States. And in 1958, the first formal fair trade shop opened in USA. So that continued, and more organizations joined, and 10,000 Villages was an organization that helped support these poor craftsmen in Puerto Rico. And so that is where this started, and the website that I've got this information from is a subsidiary of, or it's a page on the World Fair Trade Organization's website. The link is mentioned here, you'll get it, and you can read how this whole practice started. So the awareness regarding helping communities had begun, and it had not only begun, it had begun to be documented. People had started realizing that this is there, and they had started talking about it. They had started doing something about it, maybe not in a very formal, organized manner, but somebody somewhere had this awareness and inkling and commitment to helping the weaker sections of society. So at the international level, this was one of the first documented initiatives. Then in 1960, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development was created in Paris. Now, those of you who are economics students will know about this, but for the benefit of those who are not, who have not studied economics, I'll just list the objectives here. And the objectives of this organization were: 1, to achieve the highest sustainable economic growth and employment and a rising standard of living in member countries, while maintaining financial stability, and thus to contribute to the development of the world economy. The second objective was to contribute to sound economic expansion in member as well as non-member countries in the process of economic development. And the third objective was to contribute to the expansion of world trade on a multilateral, non-discriminatory basis, in accordance with international obligations. So if we go through each of these objectives, we'll see that the first was to raise the standard of living. Let's make enough money so everybody is comfortable. The second is to grow. So let's make enough money so that everybody is comfortable in our member countries. The second is to grow in member as well as, or to facilitate economic growth in the countries that were members of OECD as well as they were not members. So let's help people who are who have still not joined hands with us. And the third objective here was to contribute to the expansion of world trade on a multilateral, non-discriminatory basis. Let us take everybody along with us and move forward. And that was one more way in which this whole all inclusivity started. So, we'll be talking about stakeholder approach in a little after a few sessions. So, we are talking about everybody who is connected, anyone who could be influenced by our activities, and taking them and moving forward with them. Okay. Then in 1961, George Goider first mentioned social auditing in a report called in a book called The Responsible Company, in which he described social audit as something that can act as both a useful management tool and offer stakeholders a platform for challenging and influencing companies. We are talking about the evolution of the stakeholder approach. So, social audit will give these or was intentioned to give the stakeholders a voice, a platform to ask companies what they were doing, or why they were doing what they were doing. And this was first mentioned in this book called The Responsible Company. Okay. Then in 1961, the World Wildlife Fund was created. Now, if there's a whole lot of information about the sustainable development efforts that I have meticulously removed from this list. The list is very long about various sustainable efforts, but I have put in some. So, the World Wildlife Fund was formed in Switzerland. In 1962, Rachel Carson wrote a book called The Silent Spring that was published by Penguin Books, and this book was aimed at bringing together research on toxicology, ecology and epidemiology to suggest that agricultural pesticides are building to catastrophic levels. So, we must look after our environment. We are pumping chemicals into the environment and the environment is getting affected by it, and this happened in 1961. So, this was an eye opener to the rest of the world. Yes, we want our crops to flourish, but are we damaging something else in that process? In 1966, the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, the ICESCR, was adopted by the United Nations. Again, the link has been mentioned here. You'll get it, you can download the report. It's very, very interesting to see what happened. So, in part 1 of this covenant, part 1 focused on the right to self-determination, which means that it proposed that people are free to determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social and cultural development and dispose of their natural wealth, and the state has a responsibility to facilitate this freedom. The organizations that they are associated with do not have a role to play in this. So, they are free to decide which political party they are connected with and how they progress culturally and to acquire and dispose of their wealth. Then the second part of this talked about the right to be recognized without discrimination. So, the United Nations said, okay, we are not going to encourage people to discriminate against anyone on the basis of race, religion, community, country, etc. So, everybody has a right to be recognized without discrimination. And the third part of the report talked about the rights to fair and respectful treatment at work and the responsibility of organizations to facilitate the balancing of work and personal life of their employees. So, family and medical care, family care leave, etc. All of those things were there. Now, all of this is in this particular report. I don't have the time to go through the details, but the link is there. If you are interested, you can read this covenant and you can read it article wise. It's broken up into 3 parts. So, very, very interesting. Organizations were it was proposed that organizations should recognize their responsibility towards their employees. Employees are not just resources. Employees are people. They have families, they have children, they have responsibilities within fair limits to their families and obligations to the society that must be taken care of by the organization. 1968, the Club of Rome commissioned a study to model and analyze the dynamic interactions between industrial production, population, environmental damage, food consumption and natural usage, and this was later published as Limits to Growth in 1972, and the report is available. Again, the link has been mentioned to the Club of Rome, and you can go and you can look at this report. It's very interesting. Let me see if I can take you to it. So this book is available for download over here. You can download the entire book over here, and it is, you can read this. This is very, very interesting, and it says the message of the book still holds today. The Earth's interlocking resources, the global system of nature in which we all live, probably cannot support present rates of economic and population growth much beyond the year 2100, if that long, even with advanced technology. And the details are given in this book, and you can download it and read it. So this is where there was serious concern about the environment and what we are doing to the environment. In 1969, UNESCO provided a forum conference for rational use and conservation of biosphere for early discussions of the concept of ecologically sustainable development. Now we see that the concepts of sustainable development and corporate social responsibility are going hand in hand. When we talk about responsibility of the corporation, is the discussions focused on environment and people, and we will come to what it came to be in a little while. So these two terms were being used interchangeably. Excuse me. In 1969, the US Congress passed the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, creating the first national agency for environmental protection. The website is here. You can go to the site and see how this organization evolved, came to be, and what it does today. In 1969, the Commonwealth Arbitration Commission adopted the principle of equal pay for equal work regardless of gender. Again, the history of, this is listed in the history of employment law on the Australian government website, and so they said that both men and women should be given equal pay for the amount of work they do, irrespective of whether it's a man or a woman. It may seem shocking to those of you who've never heard that these discrepancies exist, but they do exist in many places even to this day. So in 1970, the first Earth Day was held as a national awareness campaign on the environment. An estimated 20 million, which is the equivalent of 2 crore, people participated in peaceful demonstrations all across the US to, with the idea of protecting the environment, with the idea of making the people aware of what our environment is, what it's doing to us, how it is helping us, and what we are doing to damage it, or how we need to look after it so it can continue to be a resource for us. Okay. In 1971, the Man and Biosphere program was founded by the UNESCO. Again, I think I should show this to you. This is very interesting. Here, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, founded this program, and let me show this to you. Okay, so the Man and Biosphere program was founded, and it is an intergovernmental scientific program that aims to establish a scientific basis for the improvement of relationships between people and their environments. And the website says that MAB combines the natural and social sciences, economics and education to improve human livelihoods and the equitable sharing of benefits, and to safeguard natural and managed ecosystems, thus providing innovative approaches to economic development that are socially and culturally appropriate and environmentally sustainable. And it currently counts 669 sites in 120 countries all over the world. So, that is the state to which it has grown. So, it's doing really well. So you can look this also up and see, they're doing excellent work. And I must mention here, since we are in India, you'll see that many of these sites that started in different countries all over the world have now started acknowledging the work that is being done in India. So in many of these sites, you'll see Indian faces and Indian clothes, and that's something very, very heartening. Then the Henderson Poverty Index was also developed in Australia in 1971. Then in France, companies with more than 300 employees were required by law to produce an employee report called the Bilan Social. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it accurately or correctly, but so this is still being used. I did not pull up the site because it is in French, but this particular measure is still being used. The Henderson Poverty Index is still being used. A more evolved form of this poverty index is now being used. Okay, in the 1970s, Germany engaged in the social model of corporate management, and their model is still to this day considered an alternative method of management. Excuse me. The Council also in 1970s, the Council on Economic Priorities and others in USA began to rate companies publicly on their social and environmental performance. So now people had started taking note of what is happening, and not only were the efforts in place, not only was the awareness in place, not only were people being specific about what they were doing, they had also started evaluating their efforts. Then also in the 1970s, United Nations Code of Conduct for Transnational Corporations came up, which was an early attempt to define principles of corporate social responsibility for businesses in terms of ethics, product standards, competition, marketing, and disclosure of information. Again, a more evolved form of this. This was initially called the Code of Practice, now it's called the Code of Conduct, and this came up. In 1972, United Nations Conference on the Human Environment considered the need for a common outlook and for common principles to inspire and guide the peoples of the world in the preservation and enhancement of the human environment, and the United Nations Environment Program was established. So they started looking at the environment and they said, let's integrate it. Now you'll say, what does this have to do with corporations? With all this discussion going on in the world about the environment, the organizations, profit-making corporate organizations, were also brought in because their activities were in turn influencing the natural environment, and that became very, very important. Okay. Then in 1972, Nordhaus and Tobin published a book called "Is Growth Obsolete?" This was an article in the Economic Research, Retrospect and Prospect, Volume 5, and this developed the measure of economic welfare as an alternative to crude GDP as a measure of economic progress. So they said we shouldn't only talk about economic progress, we should also talk about welfare. Now this entire chapter, it's 81 pages, it's available through the internet and the link has been given to you. So if you are interested in reading it, you should go ahead and read it. It's very, very interesting for those of you, especially for those of you who are working in the area of economics. Okay. In 1974, Rowland and Molina released a seminal work on CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, in Nature magazine, calculating that if the use of CFC gases is to continue at an unaltered rate, the ozone layer will be depleted soon. Then in 1979, the chairman of Tata Steel asked the board or asked the audit committee to report on whether and the extent to which the company had fulfilled the objectives regarding the social and moral objectives of the organization. And the advertisements here, now I should show you this advertisement, it's very interesting. These advertisements, some of you may remember, came up, and these were some of the first advertisements. This was the first time that Indian CSR efforts were on the international map. So let's see these advertisements.
आशा की ज्योति जगाते हैं, कंधे से कंधा मिलाते हैं, कामयाबी की दिशा में जाते हैं, सभी धर्मों को साथ लाते हैं, इस बात में गर्व पाते हैं, इस बात भी हम बनाते हैं।
And it was a series of jingles, and the last line, again let's watch one more.
लाखों को राह दिखाते हैं, बदलाव की हवाएं लाते हैं, बदले सुनहरी बनाते हैं, एक सुर में हम सब गाते हैं, हर दिल में मान जगाते हैं, इस बात भी हम बनाते हैं।
And the punchline here was, we also make steel. So they said we do all of these things, and even though steel was what their business was all about, they said we also make steel. So the emphasis was on creating value for stakeholders in the organization. So we do this, we do this, we do this, we bring hope to people, we also make steel. Okay. In 1980, the IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, proposed or released the World Conservation Strategy as the modification of the biosphere and application of human, financial, living and non-living resources to satisfy human needs and improve the quality of human life. So there was a lot of international discussion going on how the quality of human life can be improved with the help of all these resources that we have. Now, in 1982, the business in an organization called Business in the Community was founded by the United Kingdom based business organizations which were focused on CSR, and they started talking about this interaction between the community and the businesses that function in the community. So they said we are an integral part of the community, and this is and we cannot really divorce ourselves from the community. We are a part of the community, we have to live with the community, so we should look after the community. Let me show you this. Okay. So this is the website, Business in the Community, and they say that we are the Prince's Responsible Business Network. Our members work together to tackle a wide range of issues that are essential to building a fairer society and a more sustainable future. So this is a currently operating organization, and this happened in 1982. In 1984, Edward Freeman published his classic book or text, which is now used as a textbook, integrating CSR with mainstream management theory, and the book was called Strategic Management, a Stakeholder Approach. So the focus was on stakeholders being an important part of strategy, of business strategy. In 1986, in the United States, the Toxic Release Inventory was established under the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act by the Environmental Protection Agency. And again, this program is available for you to see. The website has been given to you, so you can go through it. In 1987, the United Nations appointed the Brundtland Commission to study the connection between development and the environment, and the Brundtland Commission then published a report called Our Common Future, and this report introduces the term sustainable development, defining it as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. And this particular report is again available for you. You can download it, you can go through it. Very, very interesting stuff. In 1988, the Cooperatives UK published its first social report, and Ben & Jerry's ice creams in United States produced their first social performance assessment. So the focus had started shifting from awareness was already there, the activities were already there. Now the focus was on evaluating the impact of these activities on the community that they were trying to serve. So the focus had started shifting, the discourse had already started including performance measures. The discussions were now focused on, okay, we have been doing all this, has it been having any impact or not? In 1989, Professors David Pierce, Anil Markandeya and Edward Barbier published a book called Blueprint for a Green Economy, which was a series of blueprints. So this was Blueprint 1. That was published by Earthscan Publishers. This book is available, by the way, on Amazon. So I'm not trying to promote Amazon, I'm just saying that I saw it there. And this particular book talks about or introduced the concept of natural capital and defined sustainable development as non-declining per capita human well-being over time. So we started including all of these things. We started including nature into the well-being of human beings. We started talking about everything that was affecting the way human beings functioned in organizations and integrating that into the discourse regarding the performance of organizations. In 1989, the International Federation of Alternative Trade, IFAT, was established in the Netherlands, and in 1993 the aim was proposed to be improving the aim of it was proposed that the aim of IFAT should be to improve living conditions for the poor through promoting fair trade internally and externally, with the anticipated result of a higher level of trust and cooperative among members, thus achieving the aim of IFAT. Again, this is from the website of the World Fair Trade Organization, and you can go through it on your own, and this is also given to you. So that is all we have time for. We'll talk about the 1990s and beyond in the next lecture, but you can see that the discourse had shifted from raising awareness, from doing things in silos. So we are sourcing material from Puerto Rico, we are doing things on our own, then the awareness came in, people started talking about it to each other. Reports had started mushrooming, people had started sharing their concerns with the community. Then the focus shifted to actual activities happening on an international level, and now people had started talking about evaluation. So those discussions were sprouting up. So we'll continue the discussion from here in the next class. Thank you very much for listening.